Welcome back. June 14th. News of the day. Here's a little board with all of the items that will be discussed today. Most of it anyways. There's stuff on the board as well that's not necessarily on this board, but I've got the board there, so we're all good. All right, so there we go. Everybody got it all written down. Everybody's got it all figured out. And you got the chapters in the bottom. Cool. Excellent. Great. Fine. Awesome. Here we go. So, to start off today's news, Carter Hutton has opted to retire. He said that he had seen that the NHL, is a young guy's game, young being guys in their early 20s, and he knew that he's not going to play forever. He retires with 235 games played, a record of 94, 90, and 27, and a career save percentage of 908. So Carter Hutton, decent career. At some point, I'll do a career video on him. I would think over the next little while here, I will do a video on Carter Hutton because it is an interesting career, and he did go through a number of teams throughout his career, and some ups and downs. Good year, gets a good contract, and then things kind of fall apart after that. So there's some interest there. I would want to say today, but I don't necessarily know that I can commit to that one today. But again, at some point soon, I'll do a video on Carter Hutton, a player who was a backup through most of his career. And so there you go. He has decided to hang them up. And I wish him all the best in retirement. All right, next up, John Gibson. So the reason for a Ducks jersey. So there was discussion of whether or not he had basically said he wants out. And this is something we've heard on and off for years. And a lot of it, I think, comes from him basically saying he doesn't like losing, which is odd because players shouldn't like losing. You're supposed to hate to lose. Is the whole... I took that from Shoresy, and at some point I'll have to talk about Shoresy as well. But anyways, hating to lose is really important in a hockey player. I will agree with that sentiment. And so if Gibson hates to lose, that's a good thing. If the Ducks can figure out a way to get better and keep him happy at the same time, while they're waiting for that breakthrough to actually get into and stay in a playoff spot, that'd be optimal. So it doesn't sound like Gibson wants to go anywhere. That's good news for Anaheim. He had a up and down season. He's had a couple of up and down seasons. And I do think that sometimes he gets overplayed. I do think he's a guy who plays through injury as well, and I think he does get frustrated at times. So the happier he is, I think the better things are for the Anaheim Ducks in general. Now, some interesting news coming out today as well is that Pittsburgh is closing in on a multi-year extension with Chris Letang. And there's some discussion about how much money that might cost and what that extension is going to look like. I'm going to guess 3 years. I'm going to guess a 3-year extension, maybe 4. It could be as low as 2, but the fact they're saying multi-year, we know it's not 1 year, and it shouldn't be. You don't want to be going year by year with this. So get Letang done, and then odds are they circle back and get Malkin done, unless you're looking to get both done at the same time and take care of that so that it's not, this past playoffs was the last chance for that trio of Crosby, Malkin, and Letang to win one together once again. And so keeping Letang is the best move, I think, for Pittsburgh. I don't think there's a defenseman on the market that would give them what Letang would in return. So it's probably for the best to find a way to keep him before we get too close to free agency. I always think it's best for GMs to get guys signed as far away from that UFA date as possible. So we're 1 day below a month away from that date. Get guys signed, because if we get within 2 weeks, very often players will be like, yeah, I like that contract, but it's 2 weeks. I want to test the market and see what else is out there. And then you just never know whether or not they're going to come back. So Letang, wanting to stay in Pittsburgh wanting to keep him around. Looks like that's going to get done. That's good news, I would think, for Pittsburgh fans. Now, if you're a Jets fan, there's a local brewery that's gotten creative. Barry Trotz is in demand. So a local Winnipeg brewery has said, hey, Barry Trotz comes and coaches the Winnipeg Jets. We'll give him free beer for life. So that might work for some. Now, it wouldn't work for... I don't like beer, so that would not be a motivator for me. My wife doesn't like beer either, so it's not like I'd be getting it for her. But, hey, a lot of hockey guys do like beer. A lot of coaches like beer. And so if Barry Trotz finds that to be something that sways him in that direction, I honestly, I would find that funny. If he sat down at a press conference and said, well, I was going to go to Philly, but free beer. I'm going to Winnipeg. So we'll see, right? But it's creative, it's entertaining, and it's also a way for that brewery to get their name out there and, for people to say, hey, these are the guys that we're going to give that free beer to Barry Trotz. So I like the creativity. I do admire the creativity behind that. All right, next up. Good news for Colorado fans, Darcy Kuemper's 100%. Now, I've seen a lot of the comments about how Colorado, clearly the goaltending is going to favor Tampa, and Tampa's going to run them over. I don't see that. I'm going to say this. Darcy Kuemper, towards the end of the regular season, was playing so well that I thought he had got himself into the conversation for the Vezina. Not to say that I thought he was going to be top 3, which he's not, but his .924 save percentage during the regular season was fantastic. He's been shaky at points during the playoffs. He's been very good at other points. He is 100% going into the final, so they're not committing to whether it's going to be Kuemper, whether it'll be Francouz. Honestly, while Francouz won that series against Edmonton, I'd be kind of surprised if it's not Darcy Kuemper in net. He's the guy who's penciled in to be the starter. He's got the bigger contract. And so I would think Kuemper starts against Tampa Bay tomorrow. And so we'll see where all of the discussions go. One thing that's interesting with the amount of break time between the end of the last series and the start of the final tomorrow, it's allowed a lot of the arguing back and forth between fan bases to really ramp up. Usually by now we're already, a game or two into the series, and then that settles down. It's just, it's weird to me because the series hasn't even started yet, and fans want to dunk on the other fan base, and it's like, you can't though. Can we just sit back and just enjoy this? Or no? Okay, all right. I mean, I have kids, so I know how it works. Just sitting back and enjoying things doesn't happen, but you can dream, can't you? You can dream of it. So all the best to Kuemper and the Abs, and we'll see how things go. All right. Lauzon, yesterday, right as I was uploading the News of the Day video, Jeremy Lauzon does sign a 4-year extension with the Nashville Predators at a cap hit of $2 million per season. I liked Lauzon in Boston. His final season in Boston wasn't perfect, and his season in Seattle wasn't going the way that I think Seattle envisioned, or probably he had either. I thought he was better in Nashville than he'd been in Seattle, so it makes sense that he wants to stay there. And a 4-year deal gives Lauzon security, and it's a cheap option for Nashville on the blue line. He is a top 6 defenseman, $2 million a year. Absolutely, I think, worth it. And so I wish Lauzon all of the best. Hopefully he plays well for them for some time to come. All right, Duncan Keith. So the Oilers are waiting on Duncan Keith to see what he wants to do. He hasn't decided. There is some belief that maybe he could retire. Now, because of the way his contract's structured, if he retires, there's a cap recapture, and it's not a small number, that would hit the Chicago Blackhawks because they're the ones that signed that contract. So even though they traded the contract to Edmonton, if he retires, there's a penalty that then goes back to Chicago, which would kind of mess up Chicago's plans to tear things down, do like either whether it's a retool, whether it's a full-on rebuild. Having that extra, I think it's $5.5 million on their cap would certainly hurt. And since it's a penalty, you can't trade the penalty. Canucks would have traded the Luongo one if they could have. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Keith does. And much like the Luongo penalty, well, he was in Florida at the time. Florida didn't care if he retired. So they were fine with him retiring and well, we'll give you a job with the team. So the Oilers, it could be the same thing. Oh, if Duncan Keith retires, we'll give him a job with the team. We'll keep him around. But the cap recapture penalty hits Chicago, and then there's that freedom that the Oilers have. They get a little bit more cap space. They're definitely looking for more cap space to try to keep as many players together as possible. They did sign a two-year, two-way deal with Brad Malone, for instance, to keep him around. Malone came up during the playoffs. I think he played well enough to warrant getting another contract from the Edmonton Oilers, and so we'll see whether or not Duncan Keith decides to retire, because if he does, that could absolutely hurt Chicago's plans for next year. So we shall see. All right, last on the board, Rangers. Some Rangers talk here. First off, Andrew Kopp wants to stay with the New York Rangers. Doesn't want a 1-year deal. He wants a long-term deal. He's thinking 4 more years. He wants like 4, maybe 5 years. And so he's willing to stick around. He wants to see how the Rangers feel about it and whether or not they want him to stick around. Also, Kakko, there's a lot of uncertainty with Kakko. He is, for the record, publicly saying he is fine with staying with the Rangers, wants to stay with the Rangers, and hopes that him being a healthy scratch isn't a sign that, his contract talks with them won't necessarily go anywhere. He's an RFA. I like Kakko. He might be best served with a trade at this point. If he's going to continue to improve and get better, maybe it doesn't happen with the New York Rangers. They definitely seem to be sending a message. It's a winner you're out situation, and Kakko's the guy they took out of the lineup. So whatever the reasons may be, Kakko may find himself somewhere else next season. I would think signing Kravtsov might make that more likely as well. We shall see. Ryan Lindgren was absolutely a warrior as well through the playoffs for the Rangers. He had been fighting through an ankle injury since near the end of the regular season. So the fact that he was able to play through an ankle injury, again, the guy's a cyborg, absolutely amazing, fantastic player, and might be one of my favorite players on the Rangers. But I mean, they've got Vetrano, they've got Kopp. We'll see whether both of them stick around with the Rangers or not. But yeah, there's a bright future there for New York. A lot of good young players, a lot of heart, a lot of drive, a lot of character, and so we'll see how things go. So, did they keep Andrew Kopp, and how much money is that going to cost them? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below regarding any of the items that were in this video. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.